It has become more of a rule than exception to sell video games with cinematic trailers, getting players excited before they have even seen a single frame of the game itself. So how do these games end up delivering on this promise of cinema-like experience in their actual core gameplay mechanics? Cinematic gameplay is a so-called buzzword, short and simple marketing phrase which started as exciting new trend for big-budget blockbusters, but has now become more of a red flag. Its popular appeal as well as its possible pitfall is quickly explained by its ambiguity. When we call a game cinematic, it could mean highly detailed realistic graphics, emphasis on telling a story by the conventions of cinema, or a promise of action pieces of colossal scope. Whatever you value most in video games gets you interested. Here's the problem. Most of the content usually described as cinematic gameplay is not. Quick-time events, forced walking sequences, unskippable cutscenes. Fun stuff, am I right? Be that as it may, this is not cinematic gameplay. Neither is this, nor this, because this is not gameplay. Forcing the audience to hold a stick or tap buttons to keep the animated movie going doesn't turn it into a game. This is just cinema. And I love cinema when I'm not playing a video game. When we are in a mood for active entertainment, we pick up the controller with a wish for engaging experience to keep us active. When we are in a mood for passive entertainment, we put down the remote and hope for nothing to interrupt the viewing. This trend of so-called cinematic gameplay is one huge contradiction full of interruptions. It forces us to switch between these two vastly different modes on command, and we cannot. In the first hour of The Witcher 3, there is at least 35 minutes of cutscenes and dialogue. The opening of this game contains more animation to watch than game to play. Does it still qualify as playing? Skipping these cutscenes is not an advisable option. It would make the game lesser because they are a major part of the whole experience by design. And in this regard, The Witcher is not an exception, but an unfortunate example of a major trend. One thing is certain. If this is how you introduce your product, people in a mood for playing a game are quick to lose interest. Especially if the writing is just absurd and obnoxious.
You're bleeding.
Most of the consumers who fund these kinds of design trends are the ones who don't even finish them.
What?
Those dirty casuals who don't even like or understand video games but still want to validate calling themselves gamers because, like being a nerd, it's cool now.
Practically had it.
And nothing against casual gaming. Everybody needs some easy time once in a while when we are not up for a new challenge that requires full concentration. But casual gaming should still be gaming. Imagine first suffering through an hour of cutscenes with mostly walking and talking in between, and then being rewarded with 25 minutes of live action drama. What the hell are you doing? Do you know what game is? How is this acceptable? Why don't we demand better? So if the phrase is misleadingly used to mean cinema with gameplay, what would be actual gameplay that is cinematic? Shut reverse shut conversations, this is some genius stuff right here. Masterclass cinematography, I'm obviously joking, this is disgusting. If we mean cinematic as in borrowing techniques of composition, lighting and sound design, how about Resident Evil? There is not even a health bar or item slots modeling the screen. All the important information is gathered by paying attention to the character and its surroundings. Kind of like in a movie. Differences in camera angles, lighting and soundscapes make every room and enemy encounter distinct. And what's best, this is 100% gameplay, like a beautiful painting you control. If we mean cinematic as in one continuous ride without interruptions following coherent and chronological storyline, Take Ico as an example. Design of minimalistic nature both in its mechanics and presentation, but not to serve an interactive cutscene, but to focus on the simple play of holding hands, tranquility of touch, anxiety of letting go. If we crave for cinematic suspense by gameplay mechanics, anticipation or excitement on every step while being in control of those steps, how about Tomb Raider? Oh no, trash this rubbish, I said Tomb Raider. This is not cinema at the expense of gameplay. This is true cinematic gameplay. Until it became this. Disgusting. QuickTime events are always easily avoidable. There are so many other ways to inflict stress and demand quick reaction without reducing control. You don't need a cutscene to introduce a new enemy. All you need is a glimpse through the window and the player is sure to slow down, becoming nervous about proceeding without the game forcing it. Shattered glass and a fresh body on the floor. That's it. Perfection. This type of design encourages to pay close attention to every tiny aspect of the play itself, instead of putting down the controller to watch an infomercial. So why not spoil it by having an unnecessary cutscene at the end? This is where the remake gets extra points. Breath of the Wild gave us so much of what we have always wanted from an open world game. An actual open world, one clear goal to make you never lost, and freedom to put that aside in order to get lost. And it's not shy about its cinematic influences. This was not some new revolutionary thinking from the player's perspective. So why did it take this long for the developers? It cannot be about bigger budget, less risks, because since when has making a game more game been risky? Why hold on to the conventions of cinema rather than trying to define this whole new medium? From the marketing standpoint, it's obvious. For a common consumer who isn't interested in games, comparison to century-old cinema helps to comprehend the growing popularity of video games. From the design standpoint, it's baffling. Beloved longtime game developer Hideo Kojima has said to be a film aficionado. And oh boy does it show, for better and for worse. His whole career has been a commentary on both cinema and gaming. But where the cinematic influence helps to make Metal Gear Solid something novel in its gameplay, despite the abundance of cutscenes, it should have never become an unquestionable staple disregarding the medium, or at least holding it back. Death Stranding takes an hour to even get to the first mission. The personal urge to direct a movie forces this game to try and become something it cannot. So much creative world building going to waste because of misdirection. If you really can't let go of this whole concept of cutscenes, go ahead and have your piece of cinema as a reward from exploration or execution. And for heaven's sake, make sure they only frame the gameplay without interrupting it, not like this. When cinema started over 100 years ago, it was nothing more than documented reality or recorded theater. But when the camera kept growing smaller and coming closer, the melodramatic theater acting became more subtle. This new medium started to find its own language. Video games are a relatively new medium, and with something new, you start with the conventions of old. Influences between movies and games are unavoidable and advisable. They are both audiovisual, but only the other is interactive. And because of this interactivity, the leap is colossal compared to the one from theater to cinema. So the conventions cannot be successfully transferred from one to the other. They need to be conformed. What comes to me, I would be ready to let go of all the shackles of cinema in order to find more characteristic ways for games to be just that. Whenever I see something really well done, I'm even more critical for its weaknesses. I encourage my games to strive for better. I want to see them thrive in their own element as the best games they can be in a way that has yet to be seen. Because that's what friends do.